Hello, folks. Welcome to the Power of People podcast. My name is Mark Erlenwein, and I'm a principal in the New York City Public School system at Staten Island Technical High School. And I am joined by friend and co-host Bob Wolf, founder of HOPE, Help Other People Excel, a program that teaches students the skills they need to succeed in life and connect with people. The Power of People podcast goal is to share effective practices to give students a competitive edge in life, bridging the social skills gap that they will need to succeed in life.
Well, one of the things that's important about that goal, Mark, is the fact that we want students and graduates to understand that they can never be successful by themselves, that people are their number one resource in life. And in order to engage that resource and help them all through their life as they navigate their career path, they need certain skills. And tonight we'll be talking about interpersonal skills, that one skill that's like the links in a chain that brings you together, connecting you with the people that are going to help you. And then when you meet them, you have no idea how much they're going to help you in your life.
Earlier this weekend, Bob, in taking my usual travels and doing my daily chores, I always take note of what the temperature is in the world. And in the world, I mean New York, because you and I, growing up and living in New York, you in Long Island, myself in Staten Island, without going into the social nuances of what that means, I will not discount the fact that every locale has its own climate, culture, flavor. And New York definitely has a grit to it and has its own set of rules and expectations. But without that being said, just taking a day-to-day, week-to-week stroll in my local super chain grocery market, I can't help but take note of some of the social nuances that occur and unfortunately sometimes don't occur as a really strong representation of where the state of society is. And I often think about being an educator in a high school, whom, like you and I, both focus and care about this particular topic, amongst many. What are the examples that we're setting for the youth of tomorrow by what the adults are doing today? And I just can't ever not forget, every time I walk into a grocery store, there's usually very distinct entrance and exit signs. And that to me is always the first barometer of what kind of visit that experience is going to be. And when I'm going into an entrance door and people are vivaciously trying to exit with disregard, I'm always kind, I'm always respectful, and I try not to give in to the social cues of the moment that probably could arise. But it's just a stark reminder that there's a crumbling and a disintegrating stitch of fabric when it comes to interpersonal skills in society, that as we're going through the motion and more recording so much of what happens in and out of our world and the repurposing and replaying it on social media, what's the examples that we're setting for youth to follow those social cues and keep those norms set? Your thoughts, Bob?
Well, what's interesting, years ago, when I was helping myself move through different jobs and different opportunities, I realized that any success that we have is because of other people choosing to help us. Choosing to help us because they've gotten to know us a little bit better. They've spent a little time with us. They've watched how we treated other people, watched how we treated our kids. I coached youth sports for a long time, and I got along with the parents just as well as I did the kids because I treated everybody the same way, with kindness and respect. I was personable. I was friendly. I was engaging. And I didn't have to worry about my phone, where my phone was back then. Today, we have these kids with their phones on their body all the time, and so do mom and dad have the phones with them all the time. And as our screen points out now, if someone is watching, we're talking about interpersonal skills today. And I thought recently, what are the things that we want people to be aware of in this society where social skills seem to be eroding a little bit? Well, we need them to be aware of doing two things with their phone. They need to lift their head up and look out at the people around them. And when I do that in stores, I say hello and good morning to people. And ironically, a majority say, oh, hi, good morning back. And I'm just shocked that people are receptive to the need for interpersonal skills. They feel a need that being met. And then we look at the kids, and I think I want them to look up and out, but not down and away. They're walking around with their head down all the time. They know what kind of shoes they have on. They know what kind of walkway they're walking on, but they don't see the people around them. They don't see the people so they can play around with learning interpersonal skills that we'll talk about a little bit later, but making eye contact, just smiling at people. I was in a store the other day shopping, and a woman said to me, "Please go ahead." I had one item in my hand. She had a basket full. She said, "Please go ahead." I said, "No, that's quite." She said, "No." I said, "Ladies first." She goes, No. That's very gentlemanly. But please, you only have one. Go ahead." So there are things that we as adults can do to send a modeling episode of how we behave that kids can pay attention to. And do we know that they pay attention to us? Well, sometimes we do. But I will tell you from the feedback I get when I'm in classrooms and I get the kids to tell me what they want to do to improve themselves, they're very tuned in to interpersonal skills, how they would meet people, what people think of them when they meet them. So we're on a topic today that's extremely important. And the fact that when you're walking out of that supermarket, when you smile at somebody and say thank you, or you hold the door for them, they acknowledge that. That's what we need our kids to be aware of. So the adult world can set the modeling behavior that we would like our youth to take forward as they grow up. And they're not getting that in other places, frankly.
No, and we have to be better, quite honestly. If we don't set the norm or just always act, and if we meet everyone where some people are sometimes, and not everybody is at their highest level from the standpoint of interpersonal skills. And to be very clear, when we talk about interpersonal skills, and I love the way you structure what the definition for that is. You refer to interpersonal skills from the standpoint of manners, common courtesy, vocabulary, and language. And going back over a decade when we first met, being that the title of today's episode 12, interpersonal skills, up and out, not down and away. I remember keenly, and you took note of it, and I think you knew exactly the reason why I did this. When you came to visit Staten Island Tech, probably a month or so after we met and we had been working together more closely, you noticed I started putting a lot of your acronyms and your content on the floor. I went to my supply secretary, and we purchased about 12, they're called Gobo lights, projectors. And you can basically put a design into the projector. And it's just a static light. It's not video or anything, but it projects a small circle or a large circle, depending on how you want to present it, onto the floor. And I was acknowledging at that time that most of the students weren't looking up and out. They were looking down and away. And that was a part of why this journey between you and I started in the first place. And we had to meet them where they were at. And where they were at that moment was looking down and away. So I thought it was important to put the messaging where I was going to connect with them. Because if I put it up and too high, they were going to miss it. And since then, we don't rely on that anymore. It's kind of those projectors are starting to fade. They don't quite work the way they did, which is fine because that's not where they're looking now after doing some great work with you for well over a decade. But I think it's really important to note that when we're talking about these particular skills, the manners, the common courtesy, and the vocabulary and the language that we're using amongst and with one another is really important in setting that tone and the cadence of life and interpersonal skills that are just so important and needs to be demonstrated so it can be mimicked properly.
Well, when you put the acronyms on the floor, it blew me away because I wasn't thinking about the fact that these kids were just beginning to look down and away. On the other hand, today, what's really interesting is that the words that we should be using when we talk about interpersonal skills are very simple words, like please. Please, can I help you with that? Or thank you very much for coming today. The people in the stores appreciate when you go buy a merchandise from the counter and you pay it and you say, well, thank you for your help. They'll say you're welcome. what we'd like to do is to bring back, and I'll use the term in a very positive way, the old-fashioned way to say thank you, which is to look, smile in the eye and say, well, thank you very much. And acknowledge the fact that someone did something for you that was important. When you become accustomed to doing that, and you're thanking people for what they did, whether they served you a meal, whether they we have a gas station locally that pumps gasoline. And the young man that pumps the gasoline, when you say thank you to him, he'll say, well, you're welcome. And it's amazing that people are receptive to the old ways of doing things. Then they're not looking for a fist bump. They're looking for a handshake. They're looking for a smile and a thank you. They're not always looking for a tip, but if you gave them a buck or two, they would say thank you back. So we would like to take the concept of interpersonal skills and activate them to these young people so they can see, hear, and feel what they look like, sound like, and act like. And when I do that in a classroom and I shake their hand and I say, thank you for coming today, they're surprised because they don't expect someone to do that. So the way we can be presenting interpersonal skills is modeling them. And what we should be doing is having the adults be aware of the fact that when mom and dad walk around with their phone all the time, go into a restaurant and take their phone out, and their kids do, they're not modeling the type of interpersonal good behavior we want their children to bring into the world when they leave school, looking to get employment, where their number one resource in life that's going to interview them and hire them and train them and then promote them is people. And we know you can't meet enough good people in this world, and you never know who they are and when you're going to meet them. We'll have some stories we can talk about later, but interpersonal skills are extremely important. And by the way, everybody can learn them. You don't need a PhD. You don't need letters after your name to be polite, respectful, kind, and just personable. Some people say, well, I'm kind of shy. I'm not comfortable around people. Okay. Well, that's understandable. A lot of people aren't like you and I with our personalities and everything. However, they can be personable simply by looking at someone and saying hi to them in a store. That doesn't require much of an outgoing personality, but the response they'll get back is so encouragingly positive that they'll think, maybe I should do that again.
Yeah, you refer to this, and I love the terminology ROI, which is typically in the world understood as return on investment, but this you term it as return on individuals. And more often than not, I notice a lack of presence in society, right? We're all guilty of it. We're all very siloed in our thinking, in our presence, not making eye contact with folks, and just being very self-centered. And I just think that's just a common thread. And not more of a commentary, but it's just a common thread in reality of how things have been wired, or rewired, I should say. But nothing is more powerful. You talk about the return on individuals when giving forth and of yourself towards somebody in just the simplest, kindest gesture of a thank you, or no, you first, or just putting yourself second or third in consideration for somebody else's needs. The power of it, right? It's like gold. It's like a coupon. It's like giving a life-bearing coupon to somebody that just doesn't get passed forward or handed down or up too often.
Well, the kids today are getting their recognition through a screen. They're looking at the screen all day long, and they're having lots of likes when they see something they want to pass along to somebody else. Nothing takes the place of a personal recognition offered by another human being with a smile on their face. That's the reason, to me, if you'd like to learn how to become a really effective interpersonal skill deliverer, get involved in a sports program. Get involved in the arts in some way. Get involved in a club or an organization in school where you're going to be naturally engaged and meeting around different people. And the interpersonal skill concept comes to life automatically sometimes. When kids in sports do something that's important, they get pats on the back and they say, thanks, great job. Those are interpersonal skills. When you're in the arts and you're in the theater group, or you're in a band, or you're in a choral group, and you're out there with those other kids and you do a great job, they're saying, wow, thank you, you did a great job. You helped me. Or when you join a club, or you join a science club, or a technology club, all those little engagements of other people bring interpersonal skills to the forefront automatically. And you don't even think about them as interpersonal skills. However, in life, your ROI, your return on individuals as you grow with your new responsibilities, new income opportunities, new challenges, handling new problems, the fact of the matter is individuals are your greatest resource. And you get the return on them when you simply know how to treat them, to engage them, to interact with them. And we have lots of different skills we can talk about, but interpersonal skills, they're the beginning process of interacting and building rapport with other people. And the groups and clubs and organizations that you belong to is the perfect venue for you to join to make interpersonal skills an active part of your life when you're there.
I think, and this is kind of funny when you think about it, like when was the last time, although we do it digitally all the time, students, kids, adults, when was the last time you actually gave somebody a thumbs up? We do it on a screen incessantly and almost intuitively when we want to say we like something. When was the last time you actually saw somebody give a physical thumbs up as a way of using language and vocabulary to be manner-minded and just give a common courtesy towards somebody to acknowledge that something that you did was actually good. But I think unfortunately, it's taken on this very, very more complex meaning that's just very, very broad and visceral versus very situational, right? Because you could do this and say thumbs up that you like something to something that's not necessarily very positive, right? The depiction of the thing that and it's one of my greatest, I guess, hang-ups with social media. I remember making, and I have to try to find that graphic and share it because I think it's very poignant. Our social media channels have very limited ways of expressing whether we like or dislike something. And I could get and understand why there's not a thumbs down button, right? But at the same time, I think the order by which they give consumers the option of how they can respond to something is completely disjointed. It starts with being able to give a like or a thumbs up, but doesn't start with a conversation. And the conversation and the interaction between people, I think, is more important than necessarily the vilification of what it is that's happening. And there is not a common courtesy. There is not a norm any longer that coexists in this very siloed world and mindset that is really prevalent. That I think is at the rudiment and the very, very foundation of this challenge of what we're talking about today. So in terms of just some social norms, let's talk out loud about just a very typical scenario or situation that most people, most adults, most students might encounter on a day-to-day basis. I think it'd be helpful for us, you and I, to chat about how should that play out.
Well, it's very interesting how it would play out. I just preface what I'm going to say by this. I looked online for the word interpersonal skills a long time ago. And today, interpersonal skills are called soft skills in our jargon. And frankly, it's upsetting to me to hear, because if anything is a foundation for building a relationship long-term where the ROI is beneficial to you and your family as you grow, nothing that's a foundation is ever built soft. And interpersonal skills are not soft. They're hardcore human interaction, knowledge, applied skills. And frankly, I was in a store the other day, and there was a mom with a little boy there, and the mom was at the counter, and the little boy was touching a toy, and mom said, "Here, well, you can pay for it now." And then the little boy put it up there, and mom said, "What do you say?" When the woman took the toy and gave him the money, the little boy said, "Well, thank you." And I looked at the mom and I said, "By the way, what a nice thing you just did as a mom." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you taught your son how to say thank you." So what we're talking about here is we would like younger people and students to understand how important an interpersonal skill is. But as you said earlier, we need to show them as adults how to do that. And over my career, lots of things have happened to me. And one of the stories I'll just briefly tell you, that many years ago at Special Surgery, or Memorial Sloan Kettering, actually, there was a supervisor, Doretta Lentz, who I'll never forget. And I was trying to sell her a medical product, and I couldn't get her to say yes ever. But every day I said, "Good morning, Miss Lentz. Good morning, Doretta. Nice to see you." Then she would just give me a polite, "Oh, hi, Bob. Nice to see you." And she blew me off. So one day I'm walking down the hallway, and I was in a funk. She said, "Oh, Bob, are you okay?" She showed some interest in me that I was shocked at to begin with. And I said, "Well, not really." She goes, "Wait, what's the matter?" I said, "Well, my aunt and uncle's apartment was broken into last night, and my uncle's my godfather, and he had a watch, pocket watch that he was going to give me, and it was stolen." She said, wait, a pocket watch? Do you know what kind? I said, "No." Now, Doretta is now having a conversation with me, which she's never done before. And I said, "Well, I don't." She's, "Bob, I collect pocket watches. Could you find out for me what that watch was?" I said, "Well, I'll do my best, but I know it was my uncle's grandfather's watch, so it was old." She said, "That's even more interesting." Well, I went and checked out the whole thing for my uncle, and I got the make of the watch, etc. But from that day on, Doretta Lentz became open and receptive to what I was selling, because we then connected on a very personal level. So the interpersonal skills that I was exhibiting all along, just saying good morning to her and hello to her, I didn't think they meant anything to her. But they did when she noticed that I was down one day and I wasn't my normal, ebullient, friendly, warm self. So interpersonal skills are a powerful people connector that we need young people to be aware of. And when they hear stories like that from your life, from my life, and I've got hundreds of them, because I wouldn't be where I am without dozens of people. There's a book out there called Making Your Bed by a Navy SEAL. And it's a book that I just read again, that my niece is a teacher in New England at a private school system. She said it's mandatory reading. And when I read it, I thought to myself, wow, the little things that we do in life, like interpersonal skills, thank you, please, and excuse me, they're not little. They're the bricks that build the basic foundation for our connection to people who can choose to help us or not, based on how they treat us and we treat other people.
So there is an alarming trend that's starting to occur more and more in some of the, I think, businesses and fast food restaurants we patronize.
Oh.
And I couldn't help but think of your acronym for SMILE the other day. SMILE simply makes individuals less edgy. And on Fridays, my family and we have a tradition. It's very ritualistic, I would say. Fridays are a specific fast food restaurant day for the Erlenwein family. My wife and my son prefer this particular meal. I prefer the good old Staten Island pizza. So I diverge a little bit. But over the past couple of years, as this ritual has continued to evolve, and when I say ritual, I mean there's a process by which now, when I used to go order the food, I would interact with people. And I would they almost knew what I was going to order, because I'd literally show up the same time, the same place, wearing my school outfit of sorts. So you kind of create this candor and this camaraderie and relationship. But since then, that interaction has been replaced with an app that I now order the food. So you could probably figure out which establishments I'm referring to without naming it specifically. But now when I walk into this establishment, I noticed earlier this year, they closed it down for about a week. You couldn't go into the place. And what they were doing is they were reconfiguring the whole front end of the establishment and replaced it with all these digital giant screen kiosks. That was almost to the point where it was discouraging. You couldn't really go to a human being to order food anymore. Matter of fact, the kiosks were there, and they had one or two people there to help people who maybe needed assistance with the technology. But the establishment had chosen to go very, very forcefully, but not much of a transition, that you're using the technology to order the food in advance. But what really stood out to me the most, and they incentivized that, because the more you use the technology, you get points, there's deals, and of course it's designed to make more money. But what really hit me the most to the core was, for as much time and energy and money they spent in upgrading the technology, and the time, energy, and effort to save money, because I'm sure this is saving them money because there's less people that they have to employ to run the front end.
Right.
They spent pretty much no time in training the people who are out front now to assist the human beings who are doing the consuming and doing the ordering, in just setting some basic norms for interacting, welcoming, making people feel less edgy by presenting a smile. And not to say that all of them didn't do it, but each one of those individual employees had a different style of doing it. And I get it. Most of these employees are of the younger generation. And sometimes, unfortunately, you get what you give. Right? If you get an attitude or a negative experience from a consumer, some people give it back. And as you know all too well, coming from the world of business, a customer is always right. And you do your best to give satisfaction towards the customer, make it better, make it right. And I just couldn't help but notice that this is a tremendous gap or a lack of attention given towards making sure that people whose job it is now, their only job up front is to make sure when the food comes out, they don't even present it to you now. They just put it basically in a holding bin and they call out the number. And they have a person there who's, I guess, the intermediary who makes sure you're getting the bag or the bags are moving. And if you need anything extra, you get that. But as I'm waiting there, and lots of people are waiting there, you just see people starting to stew in their own impatience because maybe it's taking too long. Maybe there's something completely different going on in their world, which is true. There's all sorts of things going on while you're waiting now because you're not ordering the food. You're not in the mode of, I'm hungry, I'm going to order the food. You were hungry in the car or at home when you put the order in. So when you're waiting there, you got all sorts of other stuff going on mentally before you even pick up that food. And you may take that out on the person who's trying to serve you or finish that deal. But I couldn't help but notice some of those interactions were mixed with a vocalization by the employees of the restaurant, discontent. And what they weren't taking into account was, I'm standing there, I'm listening to you respond to this. And I don't disagree that there was a sense of unprofessionalism or not being very courteous. But I couldn't help but notice, oh, wow, this is an area, this is the thing that's going to either leave me with the best or worst impression of my experience. Because the food's going to be the same. I won't call it what it is because it'll reveal the establishment. But that meal I'm going to get will be the same next week as it was yesterday. But how you treat me keeps on changing every time I go there, and I can't help but notice it. And I'm trying to. I'm a human being. I'm not perfect, and I'm trying to control my reaction to certain things because you and I talk about this all the time, Bob. And I feel like I'm going through a podcast episode, just going to order dinner sometimes, seeing what I see and choosing sometimes not to say something because sometimes in the moment there with too many people present, not that it's not worth it, but it's just I wouldn't want to put that person in an uncomfortable position. But oof, what a skills gap that has been grossly overlooked in the restaurant industry where we're going automated. Wow.
Well, it's an interesting example you give. The fact of the matter is when you go shopping to a food store, I've been going to the food store and I like to go to a line and get a woman or a man to help me out when I'm purchasing my items. We chat a little bit, and now I'm going to the part where you push a machine and you got to go, you scan your item and then push in the price. Well, when they don't work, what did the store do? They went out and hired somebody to come show like me, the dummy who doesn't know what technology is on that machine, how to use it. Now, the people that come help me, I say, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm using interpersonal skills with them, and they appreciate that. So what's going to happen is when those devices go down, and we just saw something a couple of weeks ago where the airline suffered a tremendous technological gap, tremendous problem. People were stranded for days because technology went down. When you think that you can replace everything with a machine, replace people with a machine, you cannot. You will have to have people who are capable of interacting with people with good interpersonal skills to keep the potential customer satisfied while you're trying to figure out how you're going to solve your technology problem. And AI is not going to be able to be doing what a human being can do for you when you're treating them the way we treat people. You can't treat a machine like that. The machine doesn't give a darn whether or not you're concerned or upset about it. Not at all. Someone does. I've been in stores where I've forgotten to bring my store card, and the woman behind the counter will say, "Oh, you can use mine." So little things that we would like people to understand about interpersonal skills benefits, the ROI, return on individuals, that they can provide for you that are practical, proven benefits that make you feel better that day when you went out to shop for something somewhere, needs to be explained to students. And parents can be doing that as well as schools can be doing that. So interpersonal skills, boy, vitally important, not going away, never replaced by AI ever. And they're a big part of what makes human beings human when they have to interact with the only resource in life that matters for them as they navigate their career path. It's not a machine, it's other people.
I remember working for an establishment, which is the competition to the establishment I was just referring to as a teenager. And every time I go to this particular establishment, I think back of when I was in these young students' position, working like they are. I reflect on, did anybody train me or talk to me about how I was going to present? And I shifted from a cook to a clerk. And I just had to think back. Was it more so that I was picked to do the clerk job because I was more apt and just had those skills initially or inherently to be friendly towards people? And that was the choice that my boss made at that point. Because I don't recall, I remember watching videos about how to dispose of the hot, dirty oil once a week, very clearly and vividly. But I don't remember being spoken to about how to interact with people. And that was just something I think at that point, they just relied on either you have that skill or you don't. But I was approached not too long ago. Somebody noticed on social media, on my school social media channels, that we are certifying a small percentage of students in ham radio. So amateur radio operators, there's various levels of certifications that you can receive. And over the past 2 years, we've been training students how to get their ham radio. And for those who don't know, that's basically the old-fashioned VHF, UHF signal radios that the technology is ancient. It's been around forever. It doesn't rely on any digital networks. Some of our communications with the International Space Station, as well as our robots that are on Mars, are all conducted through these very, very basic old radio waves that have been around forever. And someone was asking me, why are you doing that? Like, what's the purpose of that? I'm like, well, being a school that has spent a lot of time on advancing technology and going very high tech, I'm a firm believer we have to go high tech, low tech, and no tech. And in this case, low tech from the standpoint, what are human beings going to do if this current generation, which is going to be the next generation of doers in the professional and real world, what are they going to do when the technology fails? When the high tech is gone, how are we going to communicate? So we have tripled down on integrating a course and skill set that teaches students how to use these very older and prominent original technologies, which requires them to get certifications. And what I love about it is this whole process is based upon them being able to use their voice and use their mind and communicate. And what's beautiful about it is they have to go by a tag. And there's a whole ritual around amateur radio when you're presenting yourself on the radio, when you're looking for people to speak to, how you present oneself. And it's a very audio-based experience. You know, it's audible. It's not visual. And I'm just enamored by, I got to meet the two gentlemen from the organization that's on a national scale. They came to visit us last Thursday, and they certified about 49, probably actually a little bit more than that, students in different levels of certification, taught them how to build antennas for the radios using PVC pipe and the steel tape measures. You snip them up. And I just think it's a remarkable skill set to earn and learn, but a stark reminder about as far forward as we go, you always have to keep your peripheral vision in the rearview mirror while your GPS is going to get you to that next destination as quickly as possible, right? And how important that is to the skill set that we're talking about today around interpersonal skills, because you have to have them in order to really thrive at this amateur radio, this use of this technology, because it's solely based upon being able to carry a conversation with somebody who's hundreds of miles away. Just thought that brought to mind that experience.
Well, the only thing that's the same, Mark, in every type of work we do and job we have is people.
Yeah.
And we are now looking at kids coming out of school who are going into jobs with different generations they have to work with. And because these young people are digitally driven, addicted to that, and distracted by it in the job, they're not getting along with their coworkers at all. They don't have the basic interpersonal skills, saying good morning, hi, nice to see you again, and acknowledge how well you look today. And by the way, is that your granddaughter's picture? That the little things in conversation that body language projects shows an interest in another human being. A machine doesn't do any of that. And the kids today don't get that because they're using your phone to do everything. And by the way, we're not going to throw phones out. Phones are going to be there. And I think that's wonderful. But so are people forever. And as long as we're alive and our kids and grandkids are alive, there's always going to be people that we have to interact with. And interpersonal skills are the beginning process of doing that world of first impressioning when you say good morning to Mr. Jones. You look very nice today, Miss Smith. Thank you very much. Little things that kids need to be aware of. Those interpersonal skills are lifesavers and job savers and income savers as these younger people move up or hope to move up through the world of career opportunities. Because the thing is, they also don't understand that 12 to 15 jobs, 10 to 12 jobs is the number of jobs these young kids are going to have today when they come out of school. And they're going to use interpersonal skills to get every single one of them in some way. So we are talking about a topic that has got unlimited capability of understanding built into it. But the fact of the matter is, interpersonal skills need to be explained and taught to kids in school. And the best way to do that is not to tell them what to do, but to show them. So when I walk into a classroom and shake the kid's hand and smile and say, good morning, I'm using interpersonal skills. I didn't get a degree in that. But to your point, can they be taught? Yes. Can they be learned? Absolutely. Do they matter? Without a doubt. Students are saying, I need to know how to meet people that don't know me. I need to know whether they like me or not. Well, they'll know whether they like you by the way you treat them. And a little greeting of good morning and thank you very much for what you did matters a great deal. So we're on a topic here that's got tremendous need-based benefit for the kids that are in school today, because they take advantage of the one resource that's the same, and that's people. And my acronym for people is one that everyone started to get all over me when I created it, because that's what people do for you. They present exciting opportunities plus learning experiences. Machines don't do that. Test scores don't do that. People do that. And interpersonal skills are critically important when you deal with people, period.
Couldn't have said it better, Bob. Machines will not be going away. Machines is just simply the conduit by which we can continue to stay connected like you and I are doing right now. And in the spirit of bringing this episode to a close and modeling manners, Bob, it was just great to spend this Sunday morning with you and chatting about a really important topic that's close to our hearts. And I just want to thank you for taking this time with me today.
It's fun to engage in conversation that can benefit a lot of different people. And that's what we're trying to do when we try to help other people excel, Mark. Thanks. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy your day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you for joining us, folks. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a really great one.